duty of loyalty to my lifelong friend to speak up and to let the public know what a great person Gonzalo Curiel is.
Donald Trump's jabs at a San Diego judge raised the ire of his friends and colleagues. The San Diego County Registrar's Office braces for high turnout tomorrow amid swelling voter rolls. And as the Summer Olympics creep closer, it's becoming clear that promises about cleaning up Rio may go unfulfilled. KPBS Evening Edition starts right now. Good evening. Thanks for joining us. I'm Amitha Sharma. More than a week after the presumptive GOP nominee called out the judge in the Trump University class action suit during a San Diego rally, Donald Trump continues to double down on his controversial statements. Now some of Judge Gonzalo Curiel's friends and colleagues are speaking out. KPBS's Steve Walsh has the story.
Behind me is the building where Judge Gonzalo Curiel is hearing the Trump University case. Now, the judge has not commented publicly on any of the publicity surrounding the case, though some of his friends have decided to weigh in.
Gonzalo Curiel and I were born on the same day, the same year, in the same hospital. But we didn't meet until ninth grade.
Greg Vega grew up in East Chicago, Indiana, in Steel Country just outside of Chicago.
This is a picture at my youngest son's confirmation, and the judge was his sponsor.
He worked with Curiel when Vega was U.S. Attorney for the Southern District of California.
This was when we announced the indictment of the Arellanos.
He remembers when the Felix cartel in Tijuana targeted Curiel for assassination back in the 1990s. He was kept at a Navy base and escorted by U.S. Marshals.
He's a pro, and he kept his eye on the ball, and he stayed focused on his work, and he kept working.
Vega is confident that Curiel isn't following the comments made by the presumptive GOP nominee, where he's questioning whether Trump could receive a fair trial because Curiel's parents are originally from Mexico.
I think it's offensive, and I'm angry. Initially, when he made a comment in February, I was hoping that it would die down. But when Mr. Trump raised the issue again, I felt the duty of loyalty to my lifelong friend to speak up and to let the public know, what a great person Gonzalo Curiel is.
Both attorneys are members of San Diego La Raza Lawyers Association. Trump stated recently that it's further evidence of his bias, though the local group is not affiliated with the National Social Justice Group, which has protested outside of Trump events. Regardless of the outcome of the election, this case is still scheduled to be heard on November 28th. Reporting from the federal building in downtown San Diego, Steve Walsh, KPBS News.
The controversy over Judge Curiel came up on the Democratic campaign trail today. Speaking in Linwood, Hillary Clinton blasted Trump for his remarks and called for an end to divisiveness.
I'm waiting for him to say, because of all the bigoted things he has said about women, that a woman judge couldn't preside. By the time he's finished, nobody's going to be left in this country that he is going to have exempted from insults.
Clinton needs just 23 delegates to clinch the Democratic nomination.
I want to present to you my dear brother, Bernie Sanders.
Voters will have their say tomorrow when they cast ballots for not only president, but numerous state and local races as well. On this primary election day eve, the KPBS voter registration tracker shows more than 22,000 San Diego County residents signed up to vote in the final days leading up to the deadline. KPBS reporter Megan Burke says the county's swelling voter rolls could mean high turnout on Tuesday.
1.5 million county residents are registered to vote. That's more than were registered in advance of the 2008 presidential primary, when 61% of voters turned out to the polls. Registrar of Voters Michael Vu says he's preparing for a similarly high turnout Tuesday.
What we know is that there's a number of individuals that have registered for the very first time or registered within our county, to the tune of over 100,000 new registered voters since January of this year. So what that means is that there's a level of excitement going into this election. The only question now is once you register, it's a two-step process. You need to register and then go out and vote on election day to complete the entire election cycle for a voter.
More than a quarter of mail-in voters have already returned their ballots. Vu recommends dropping off mail-in ballots at designated locations throughout the county or at your neighborhood polling place to be safe. Otherwise, they must be postmarked by Tuesday and received by Friday to be counted. Megan Burks, KPBS News.
Some voters were beating tomorrow's rush and dropping ballots off at the registrar's office in Kearney Mesa. We asked them why they were taking the time to vote.
I voted because I feel like it's important for young people to start getting involved in politics, especially in such a important time right now. And then I feel like a lot of people don't really notice or don't really know what the primaries are. And this is a time where it shows how important it is for people to get involved in politics and just start to see what it is and how it is that it affects us.
2 years ago, I became a U.S. citizen, so this is the first time in my life that I'm going to be able to vote for a presidential election.
This vote is going to be so important because we're going to determine if we're going to go in a more positive direction for all of us. Not just one party or two parties, for all of this country to be together.
It's just good to be involved and know what's going on. If we don't care, the bad guys take over.
KPBS has been looking into some of the political flyers that are clogging voters' mailboxes this election season. In the final edition before tomorrow's June primary, reporter Claire Trageser explores a business group's support for a reluctant candidate.
I've worked with Ricardo Flores and trust his commitment to protecting our neighborhoods.
That's a robocall from Republican Mayor Kevin Faulconer in support of Democrat Ricardo Flores. He's running for the City Council District 9 seat. The calls join a series of large glossy mailers showing quotes from Faulconer about how great Flores is. They're paid for by the San Diego Regional Chamber of Commerce's Political Action Committee. But does Flores want their support? It's hard to say.
I thought that that the message that they're conveying, that I'm willing to work in bipartisan fashion with individuals to better our communities. I thought that's what I took from it.
Flores says he didn't know about the chamber's plans.
Our goal was to try and get as much support as possible for this election, and that we also wanted to make sure to communicate to the public as well that that I'm willing to work in a bipartisan fashion, that I have a history and a track record of doing that.
Has he worked with the chamber in the past?
Not specifically on any specific issue, no.
We've worked with Ricardo and always felt he was open to hearing our issues and concerns.
Amy Fawcett heads the chamber's political committee. She says they've worked together on issues such as job creation, infrastructure, and water reliability.
We know that we're not always going to agree on all issues, but we do like his collaborative leadership style.
Flores is running against 3 other Democrats. One of them, Georgette Gomez, also paid to be included in a so-called Republican voter guide. It urges voters to vote Republican and has a picture of former President Ronald Reagan. A spokesman for Gomez wrote in an email that she paid to be part of the mailer because she, quote, has told voters of every party and in every neighborhood that she'll shake up City Hall and oppose spending any taxpayer money on a stadium. Claire Trageser, KPBS News.
And you can still show us the mailers you receive by tweeting a picture to KPBS News, posting them on our Facebook page, or by emailing us at kpbsmailers@kpbs.org. We'll be collecting them through the November election. If you have yet to cast your ballot, you can get a look at all our coverage of the issues and the candidates online at kpbs.org. The California Supreme Court has given Governor Jerry Brown the green light to put a plan in place to reduce the state's prison population on the November ballot. The decision will allow voters to weigh in on an initiative to increase sentencing credits for adult inmates and allow earlier parole for nonviolent felons. A lower court had ruled the governor had improperly modified an existing measure to avoid presenting a new plan. The new plan would have needed to receive 30 days of public comment. Yesterday was Election Day in Tijuana, and preliminary numbers are out tonight. Election officials say it looks like Juan Manuel Gastelum will be the next mayor of Tijuana. He is with the right-of-center party known as the PAN. He has a narrow lead over two other candidates. A final count is expected on Wednesday. State water officials say that nearly all 24 San Diego water agencies met their state-mandated water conservation goals for April. Only Fallbrook, Olivenhain, and Santa Fe fell short. Statewide, Californians cut back their use by about 26% in April compared to the same month in 2013, which the state uses as its benchmark. The figures show water usage cuts, but 60% of the state is still in a severe drought. Governor Jerry Brown recently revised his executive order requiring water agencies to come up with their own conservation standards by June 22nd. A handful of bills aiming to create more affordable housing are now making their way through the California legislature. Governor Jerry Brown is endorsing the Senate's $2 billion plan, which has also garnered support from Republicans across the aisle. Assembly Democrats are pushing a different plan that initially wanted nearly $1 billion to subsidize housing.
We see an increasing homelessness going on across the state, particularly heavy in LA County, so it's a big issue. It has to be addressed as we continue, in my estimation, driving a lot of good jobs out of the state. We have the haves and the have-nots, and it's really on the backs of the middle class.
California's housing is among the most expensive in the nation, second only to Hawaii. Former California Assemblyman Tom Calderon has pleaded guilty. Calderon faced 20 years in prison, plus a fine for a corruption case that involved he and his brother Ron Calderon, a former state senator. The plea will most likely result in reduced prison time and the dismissal of other charges. The brothers were indicted on 24 counts of fraud, bribery, and money laundering. San Diego County has seen an increase in the number of traffic-related deaths over the last several years, and pedestrians comprise the bulk of that increase. As part of the ongoing News in Numbers series from KPBS News Partners, iNewsSource reporter Leo Castaneda is here with more on the shifting risks on San Diego's streets.
The number of pedestrians killed in San Diego County last year was the highest it's been since 1994. That's based on data from the San Diego County Medical Examiner's Office, which tracks the number of traffic-related fatalities locally. Overall, traffic-related deaths have been increasing since 2010, but to some degree the risk is being transferred from cars to pedestrians. In 2007, out of every 10 traffic-related deaths, 6 were car occupants, so drivers or passengers, and 2 were pedestrians. Last year, out of every 10 deaths, only 5 were in cars and 3 were pedestrians. Bicyclists, for their part, have been pretty steady at about 8 deaths a year, despite increases in the number of bike riders in the county. An officer with the San Diego Police Department's Traffic Division attributed the increase in pedestrian deaths in part to distraction from both distracted drivers and distracted pedestrians. Motorists have much more room for error, however, because of technology like seatbelts and airbags that keep drivers safe and passengers safe during an accident. Pedestrians don't have any protections beyond good traffic signage and lighting to keep them safe. There are also more people walking around in San Diego, which increases the odds of an accident. But a spokeswoman with the transit advocacy group Circulate San Diego told me that's not a valid excuse. Her organization is advocating for brighter, more effective crosswalks than the city has already started rolling out. Leo Castaneda, iNewsSource.
Law enforcement agencies in San Diego County have seen a huge uptick in calls about mental health issues over the past 6 years. A new report says it's an 84% increase since 2009, and researchers say the number doesn't reflect calls that were later found to be linked to mental illness. The report comes from the San Diego Association of Governments. It says some of the reasons for the increase include increased drug use, more people with post-traumatic stress disorder, and greater public awareness of mental health issues. The Obama administration has named part of San Diego as a promise zone, putting it in line for federal support to improve the economy. The promise zone designation is also intended to improve education and access to affordable housing in the area, shown on this map. And the White House says it will also lower crime. Promise zones get preferred access to federal investments and federal staff to help implement programs. California lawmakers honored a historic group of African-American servicemen known as Buffalo Soldiers. A special event today was held at the state capitol for the first African-Americans to serve in the U.S. Army during peacetime. Their regiments were formed after the Civil War in the 19th century. These soldiers fought in Cuba during the 1898 Spanish-American War and the First World War.
We tell that story because it's an important story, and young people today, they know nothing about that history, what that history represents, and I think there's a disconnect, unfortunately, with young people today and the contribution that blacks have made to this is our country too, but they may not look at it that way. But if they learn their history and they see, what was done in order for them to be here today, they may take a better pride in their own actions because, again, their legacy of who these young men were back in the 1800s.
Lawmakers say those soldiers changed the face of the U.S. Army forever through their record of unique accomplishments. An Associated Press investigation has identified thousands of local law enforcement agencies that have not submitted information on hate crimes to the FBI in years. Reporter Alex Sands says advocates are worried the lack of reporting disguises the extent of bias crimes.
In the years since 9 black parishioners were killed in Charleston's Mother Emanuel, issues of race and justice have taken on new urgency. Cynthia Hurd, Malcolm Graham's sister, died that June night.
In Charleston, a lot of people talk about this being another example of gun violence. That's not so. Certainly, the gun was the tool that the perpetrator used to commit the crime. The crime itself was hate.
Among the charges filed against Dylan Roof, federal hate crime charges. The FBI defines a hate crime as a criminal offense against a person or property, motivated in whole or in part by an offender's bias, against a race, religion, disability, sexual orientation, ethnicity, gender, or gender identity. It's impossible to say how many hate crimes happen each year. An Associated Press investigation found over the past 6 years, 17% of all local law enforcement agencies, close to 2,800, didn't submit a single hate crime report to the FBI. The reporting is voluntary.
I think these crimes go underreported for political reasons. Sometimes people don't feel it in their interest to be honest about this, when the reverse is true. We cannot come out of this by engaging in a kind of dangerous denial.
The FBI is pushing for better accounting and tracking of hate crimes. On average, 5,000 to 7,000 hate crimes are cataloged in its annual crime report. But it's not just law enforcement failing to report them.
Out of nowhere, there's hands, fists, and feet everywhere. Of course, it was a gay bashing.
In 2012, Brandon White was attacked in Atlanta.
Growing up in the projects, calling the police is just not an option. The police aren't there to help you. We all knew what it was.
After video of White's attack surfaced, Atlanta police investigated. His attackers were prosecuted. 2 pleaded guilty to a federal hate crime. At the time, Atlanta police didn't report any hate crime investigations. The officer in charge of filing those reports had retired that year. Since White's attack, Atlanta has had more consistent reporting, but patchy reporting by law enforcement elsewhere. That's undercut the full picture of hate crimes across the country. Alex Sands, The Associated Press, Atlanta.
Warm, dry week ahead for San Diego. Steph Davis has the forecast in tonight's KPBS weather report.
Happy Monday, everyone, and the weather remaining quiet as we kick off the new work week. You'll notice satellite and radar showing dry conditions from Nevada all the way towards the California coastline with clear skies up and down the Golden State. Taking a closer look around home, nothing going on satellite and radar wise here across our region. Dry out there from Borrego Springs all the way towards San Diego and north towards the Oceanside area. Now we'll see some low clouds build in as we head into tonight. Mild in Borrego Springs. Your overnight low is 70 degrees. Upper 40s tonight in Mount Laguna. Dry and into the 50s we go in Ramona and Alpine. 61 with low clouds in Oceanside. Remaining dry tonight in San Diego itself with your overnight low at 63 degrees. Hot and dry across the interior Southwest. Same deal for interior Southern California. However, the coast will stay nice and cool with that cool sea breeze for our Tuesday. Here's a look at your 5-day outlook for the coast. Low clouds breaking for sunshine Tuesday, high temperature 71. Same conditions on Wednesday with highs in the low 70s. 73 with low clouds breaking for sun on Thursday. Skies continuing to clear Friday and into your Saturday with your highs at the coast in the low 70s. Taking a look at your 5-day outlook inland, showing a similar weather pattern in place here. Low clouds break for sun Tuesday and Wednesday as temperatures climb into the low to mid 70s. 74 is your high temperature Thursday, and then clouds will break for clear skies Friday and as we kick off the weekend on Saturday. 5-day outlook across the mountains, mostly sunny and warm Tuesday, very warm Wednesday and Thursday with your daytime highs in the mid 80s, and then a beautiful day to wrap up the work week Friday in the mountains, mostly sunny and comfortably mild. Your high is 75 degrees. Sunny and cooler, but still pleasant for your Saturday with highs near 70. Still dealing with triple-digit heat across the deserts, mostly sunny and warm on Tuesday. Daytime high 106. Similar conditions on Wednesday, so just make sure to exercise caution in this high heat. Make sure to keep yourselves nice and hydrated, and make sure to keep an extra eye out for your pets as well. Cloudy and warm on Thursday as daytime highs remain in the triple digits, and then we'll gradually cool things back down into the 90s on Friday. Plenty of bright sunshine Saturday. Your high in the desert is 94. Steph Davis, KPBS News.
I'm Hari Srinivasan. On the next news hour, we take a trip on Route 66, the iconic highway from Chicago to Santa Monica, long surpassed by the interstate system. It's having a rebirth. That's Monday on the PBS NewsHour.
A 2-mile stretch of beach in Orange reopened today after several large shark sightings closed it down over the weekend. A sheriff's helicopter crew saw the sharks off Sunset Beach and Huntington Beach on Sunday afternoon. The sharks were estimated to be at least 8 feet long and 150 yards from shore. The sighting came a week after a swimmer was attacked by a shark south at Corona del Mar State Beach. The woman suffered a large bite but is recovering. Rio de Janeiro's filthy waters may threaten the health of Olympic athletes competing in water sports this summer. Associated Press reporter Luke Sheridan explains the promise the soon-to-be Olympic city could not keep.
When Rio de Janeiro bid to host the 2016 Summer Olympics, authorities pledged that an extensive cleanup of the city's polluted waterways, including treating 80% of the city's sewage, would be one of the game's enduring legacies. But the president of SEDAI, Rio's state-owned water utility, charged with meeting the Olympic bid goals, says he isn't sure how the 80% figure was decided upon.
O cara perguntar, por que ele chegou a 80% como falaram, né? Isso aí é a pergunta recorrente. Aí eu sempre digo o seguinte, primeiro que eu não sei de onde saiu os 80%, da SEDAI.
Just across Guanabara Bay, the city of Niterói is showing that a real cleanup is possible. Nearly all of the city's 500,000 residents are now connected to the sewer grid. By comparison, Rio treats only about half its sewage.
I think the city has missed the opportunity, or the metropolitan area of Rio, the 12 cities there around Guanabara Bay, and the state level has missed the opportunity to solve a problem that would be a great achievement for the city.
An ongoing study commissioned by the Associated Press has shown that rowers, sailors, and marathon swimmers competing in Guanabara Bay and other Olympic venues will be exposed to waters so filthy they're roughly equivalent to raw sewage. Officials in Niterói say using private companies, subject to accountability, which Rio doesn't do, has been key in getting the city close to treating 100% of its sewage. Niterói's efforts to stop their sewage flowing into the bay and onto the beaches are largely in vain because the volume of sewage from Rio ends up on their side of the bay.
De tempo pra cá a água está mais limpa, mas não muito mais limpa como a gente queria que estivesse. Tá meio suja ainda, mas tem que melhorar muito ainda.
It doesn't look like it'll get better anytime soon. Rio says the cleanup will now not happen until the year 2035. Luke Sheridan, The Associated Press.
Here's a look at what we're working on for tomorrow in the KPBS newsroom. While voters go to the polls tomorrow, a healthcare workers union is already looking ahead to November. They're proposing a ballot measure to cap pay for hospital CEOs. We'll have that story on Morning Edition. And on Midday Edition, what it costs the U.S. to help Mexico patrol its southern border. That's at noon on KPBS Radio. Happening now in southeast San Diego County, a firefight on the ground and by air as crew try to extinguish a nearly 8-acre brush fire near Zarina Lake Drive. This is in the rural Terra del Sol area. CAL FIRE says there are no reported structural threats. You can find tonight's stories on our website, kpbs.org/evening edition. Thank you for joining us and have a great evening.